Hi, welcome. Happy New Year. You might hear in my voice, I'm still a little bit congested from being sick. So I won't be sounding my best today, but I hope you are feeling well and sounding your best. Today, we're talking about range extension and we'll be specific about which register we're extending the range of. We can talk about range extension overall, but for me, it's more important to get specific to say, are we talking about chest register extension, mix extension, head voice extension? That's a little bit more of a helpful way of thinking about it and a little bit more practical. I want to talk first about just some overall principles of range extension. The first principle is that most beginners, especially most untrained singers, can expand their range. Chances are, when you first come to singing, you are not accessing or utilizing your full vocal range. And oftentimes, I'll have students come into a lesson and they want to be diagnosed. They want me to tell them what their voice type is or what their vocal range is. And I always tell those students, I don't like putting singers in a box. I can help you find out what your comfortable range is today, but I can't tell you what your overall range is going to be. In the same way that if you have not been in the habit of stretching, I can't tell you whether or not you're going to be able to do the splits. I can't see into the future. The only way to find that out is to get into the habit of daily stretching, daily vocalizing, and then see how your voice develops. And that's a better way to approach range extension rather than saying, I need to be able to hit this specific pitch. Just stretch your voice. The voice is not going to be playing by your timeline necessarily, unfortunately. So, most beginners can expand their range. Usually, when a beginning singer comes to me and they're asking for their voice type, I focus more on the low notes than the high notes. The reason is this: your vocal folds are basically at their shortest for the lowest notes you can sing. They stretch out longer and thinner to sing higher pitches. So, the amount that they're able to stretch today that's important to know, but again, I can't see into the future and tell you how far they can stretch later on. What I can say is, let's say, for example, I'm a female singer. If I can't comfortably sing lower than this note right here, that's an A3, it's A below middle C. If I cannot sing lower than that, I'm just sharp, I'm trying, but I can't get lower. I would say to that singer, you're probably not an alto or what we consider an alto. An alto would be easily singing the G, the F, the E, and even lower sometimes. So I focus on the low notes because low notes, in my experience, are less flexible than high notes. You can't really make your vocal folds shorter than they already are. If you think of a rubber band, you can't make it less material, but you can stretch it out longer, and that's where the high range extension comes into play. The second overall principle of range extension is that it does take time in the same way that stretching and getting comfortable in a stretch takes time. So the fact that you can say siren up to a high note today, that's great, that's awesome. Can you sustain that note? Can you sing many different vowels on that note? Can you sing lyrics on that note? Maybe the answer is no, and that's okay. But again, think about it as a stretch because your vocal folds are stretching out. You're holding a position that is new to you, that might be uncomfortable. And this is what happens when we're holding either a bodily position or a position with our vocal folds that we're not used to, is other muscles tend to tense up. So if you've ever been in a yoga class or a dance class, probably at some point the instructor is, telling you to stretch out your legs. So maybe your legs are out on the floor and they're having you lean over, and at some point they'll give you the instruction, don't tense up your neck. Don't tense up your shoulders. Um, I've had dance teachers say, the neck and shoulders are not invited to this party. All we're doing is stretching our legs. And the instruction is to relax the rest of your body. It doesn't do you much good if you're all squeezed up and strained trying to hold that stretch. It's the same thing for stretching your voice. Um, we tend to tense up when we're in uncomfortable territory. That causes the tone to be less than adequate. It actually limits the range in which you can sing if you're constricting. So it's going to take time not only to be able to stretch, but also to be comfortable within that stretch, to stretch to those high notes without everything else squeezing up. Um, Along that same line, your lowest and highest notes today will not feel and sound as comfortable and as beautiful as they eventually will. Um, the best thing you can do is exercise your full range daily. And one of the easiest ways to do that, which I'll go over with you shortly, is exercising your voice through a straw. So if you do have a straw handy, grab one and a cup of water and don't fill it up all the way. So just halfway cup of water and a straw if you can. We will sing through that shortly, but that's probably the best way for you to ensure that you're getting to your lowest notes and your highest notes in a really gentle way, and a way that encourages your vocal folds to come together cleanly and efficiently. The next principle of range extension overall is to use the vowel or syllable that works best for you. So, what works best for me, for example, when I am working on low range extension, I usually like to use a really narrow vowel like an E. E. Okay, that's a low note for me. That's an E flat 3. I can't sing that as well on an it feels really forced. The tone is starting to get kind of muddy and froggy. But for your voice, an might feel wonderful, especially for really low voice types like basses. Sometimes those voices just open up into this big and that's the only way they can get those low notes. So, whatever exercise we're doing, I'm going to give you kind of general principles, but you can always use a different sound if it works better for you in that specific zone. Um, Touch the note at first and work towards sustains gradually. So on day one, let's say the highest you've ever sung, I'm going to talk to maybe male singers. Maybe the highest you've ever sung is this G4, and you've never been able to sing this A or B or C. Um, you should not worry about sustaining those notes beyond your comfortable range today. Just see if you can slide up to them, ooh, and come back down. That's it. You don't have to hold it. Does not have to be a marathon. So touch the note at first, work towards sustains gradually, and then don't worry about power or tone at first. And this holds so many singers back. I can't even tell you. Singers will be wanting to sing higher. Typically, that's what singers want to do is they want to sing higher, and they don't let themselves because they don't like the sound. So they're working, let's say, on their head voice, and it starts to sound kind of shrill, kinda Mickey Mouse-like or squeaky or breathy or weak, okay? I get all of these words thrown at me when singers are talking about what they don't like about their voice. Um, the issue is that causes them to then just never sing those pitches because they don't like the sound. And they think, "Oh, that doesn't sound good, so I shouldn't be singing there." Not true. Those notes are not going to sound good today. They're not gonna sound good if you've never sung them before, because again, remember what happens when you're holding a position or holding a stretch that's new for you, all these extra muscles are tensing up to try to help out, or just because your body is stressed. um, that's going to make your tone bad. So don't judge the tone and don't expect power and clarity on those notes that, again, are new for you. So the kind of phrase that I give most of my students is just make sound. Do not worry about singing. We are just making sound. That's all singing is at the end of the day. We can adjust the tone later, and the tone is going to get better the more comfortable you are on those pitches. Um, Pitch Casualty is asking, some of the popular bass singers, Tim Faust, for instance, has said the best way to improve your low range is to work on your high range. Do you agree with that? And would the adverse be true as well? I think there's truth in exercising your full range and uh, your low notes improving your high notes improving your low notes. I suppose, I think it comes down to vocal flexibility, you know? Um, when you're going for low notes, you're working on relaxation. When you're going for high notes, you're working on stretch and thinning out. So I can see that for your high notes, relaxation would help you. And for your low notes, potentially thinning out or something could help. So, I mean, hey, whatever works for you. I would say, even if your low notes didn't improve your low notes are worth working on. you know. Um, all right, my friends. So, how to find your comfortable range? We're going to look for your comfortable range today. So, we're going to go low chest voice first. Then we're going to find mm, what I would call your chest dominant mix, or whatever sound you can make that can kind of pass as a chest voice sound on the upper end. And then we're going to get into head voice and see how high you can sing in head voice. So, first, for female singers or high voiced singers, start at middle C right here. Again, you're singing on anything. Sing ah or hoo, e, does not matter. If you are not sure if you're singing this pitch, then you can go to tuner.ninja. Use headphones because you don't want it picking up my sound, you want it only picking up your sound. So, you can put me in your headphones and then you're singing, the microphone is gonna pick up your voice and then tell you what pitch you're singing. So, this is C4. I'm gonna walk down a half step at a time. When you drop out, just write down what that pitch is. B3, B flat 3, A3, A flat 3, G3, F sharp 3, F3, E3, E flat 3. This is where I usually E. I'm bottoming out here. E. That's a D3. D flat 3. I'm gone. C3. B2. Cookie's still in here. Oh, I should have brought in tenors. Tenors, if you think you're a lower voice type, but the higher of the lowers, start right here. For me, we're gonna just walk back a few. Start on this E flat 3, D3, D flat 3, C3, B2. Okay, all low voices in now. B flat 2, A2, A flat 2, G2, F sharp 2, F2, E2, E flat 2, D2. If you're singing this low, I mean, you're probably a bass. You could keep going from there. Some of you might have a low C, D flat 2, C2. Okay, whatever your lowest note was, write that down for yourself. You don't have to share. Of course, you're welcome to. So remember, I was saying before, I usually will give a little bit more credence to the low note when a beginning singer comes and asks what their vocal range is. So if, as a higher voice singer, if you were really struggling below middle C, and especially if you were struggling below this A3, I would probably say look more in the soprano and mezzo soprano world for warm ups and repertoire. If you were comfortably singing G's, F's, E's, E flats, even D's, You can look more in alto territory and maybe even some songs by tenors. You're going to be comfortable there. If you were struggling below this C3, so maybe you could get the B, maybe the A, but below that, it was just falling apart or just air was coming out. Look more in tenor territory for warm-ups and repertoire. If you were comfortable and your voice was still brilliant and resonant on that A flat, maybe the G, you might be more of a baritone. If you were singing all the way down to that E with ease, that's bass territory. Some of you might be singing comfortably across these ranges. That's fine. That's pretty normal for your voice to not be in one box. And this whole voice typing thing is kind of it might not be as much of a thing a couple years from now. Um, People always ask, and that's why I'm addressing it. If you sing in a choir, you might have to type your voice. And what I'm saying specifically is you can look for warm ups that will exercise that range and maybe stretch that range. For example, it doesn't do me any good to sing along with a tenor warm up or a baritone warm up because I simply can't sing that low. So I look for alto warm ups and mezzo soprano warm ups because that's where my voice is most comfy. Um, so, anyways, it's a good place to start, but do not put yourself in a box and just know that most contemporary music does not respect these range boundaries either. More in the classical world and the choral world, you might see repertoire that is a little bit more, you know, has those boundaries. Okay, so Nick's range has expanded. That's awesome. Cookie was saying I was using Sing Sharp Tuner. My low note changes to C3 and then B2. So that's, C3, then B2, and maybe the tuner was kind of glitching out a little bit. So, yeah, that's tricky sometimes. Okay, we're going to go in the opposite direction and find your highest pitch that can pass as chest voice. So, whether that is pure chest voice for you or a chest dominant mix, if you've been training and you've kind of extended that chesty sound, we will find that today. So, use whatever syllable's comfortable for you. If you want to use something like a hey, or, if you wanna use a mix-friendly syllable like one, that would be a good one. My I know with my voice recovering, I am not going to be, doing that great, so I won't demonstrate too much. Um, but just calling out on one, let's start right here. So I'll have you go 1. Can't sing that low. 1. All right. D3 on the bottom. It's not happening. But low voices, you'll be fine there. So you're starting on A3, and then we're just going down this arpeggio. A, F sharp, D. Okay? So I'm going to call out the top note so you can write that down. And if at some point your voice cracks or it's just too high and you have to go into head voice, then don't include that in this specific section of your range. The reason I'm having you notate this is because there are certain songs that we want to sing in a certain way. It doesn't do us much good if let's say my overall range is like A3 to E5, okay? It doesn't do me much good if I wanna go sing "Shallow" from A Star Is Born, which I know requires, like, a belting kinda chest dominant sound on this C5. And even on the D as well. It doesn't do me much good if I wanna sing that song and I have this overall range, so I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I can hit the notes," but I can't hit them in that way. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Okay, so we're back here singing 1. Low voices, you got this. This is A3 on the top, B flat 3 on the top, B3, C4. C sharp 4, 1, 1, 1, D4, E flat 4, E4. You can switch up the syllable if 1 doesn't work for you. I just like 1 for chesty mix. 1, 1, 1. That was F4. Did I say that? Here's F sharp 4, G4, G sharp 4, A4, B flat 4, B4, C5, C sharp 5. Remember, we're still looking for that dominant sound. So if you're still going, but you're going 1, 1, 1, and you're clearly in head voice, don't include that yet. We're going to get to head voice shortly. D5, E flat 5, E5. Pitch casualty is saying, I can't tell if I'm still in chest. So nobody would still be in chest voice this high. You would be in a chest dominant mix. What it comes down to, because mix is such a big umbrella, is do you think that sound could pass as a chest voicey sound or a belty sound or a strong sound? So let me demonstrate lower today. So if I'm singing this 1, 1, 1, that's not full chest voice. It's starting to mix a little bit, but it's a different sound than 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. That feels and sounds like my head voice. So it's a little bit subjective. Many things in singing are, but that's what I would ask myself. Do I think this could pass as a really strong belty or chesty sound, or does it sound like I flipped into head voice? Okay, so most people were already transitioning to more of a head dominant sound anyways at that E5. Okay, unless you are easily singing like Demi Lovato kind of material, then maybe you're going a bit higher than that. F5, F sharp 5. Okay, so how do you know when mix ends? The ideal with your mix is that you are transitioning somewhat imperceptibly from more of a chest voice sound to more of a head voice sound. So let me see if I can demonstrate with my icky voice today. On the bottom, hear how it's starting to lighten up already? On the top there, definitely more head voice in the sound. Little bit unstable in the middle there. You can hear there wasn't a big break. I wasn't going ah and going chest voice to head voice. E ah. The ideal is that that transition is happening pretty smoothly. So it's kind of like you're turning up a dial, it's like more chest voice on the bottom and then head voice is kind of taking over on the top. Other singers don't experience their mix in that way. Some singers experience quite a big difference between a chest dominant mix and a head dominant mix, and they can kind of choose which one they're going to use. How do you know when mix ends? I would say mix ends when you feel like you are in light, pure head voice or falsetto. Ooh, that feels totally in my head, light. It doesn't feel as weighty or grounded as a kind of mix would. Every singer feels their voice differently, but let me give you some specific pitches too. So hopefully now you've written down your lowest chest voice note, your highest passable chest or chest mix note, and we'll get into high head voice quickly. But just so that you know, typically for low voice singers, that's tenors, baritones, basses, you're typically gonna cap out at chest voice starting around this D4. Usually people start to have trouble on E flat 4, E4. If not, they're definitely by F, F sharp. And there aren't very many people who could sing a G4 without some sort of mix going on. That's for low voice types. Typically, those voices have to be starting to lighten and use a little bit of that head resonance by the time they get, especially to that G4. Otherwise, it just gets really shouty and flat and strained. For high voices, sopranos, mezzos, altos, you're making that same transition starting around A flat 4. Okay. So you're ideally starting to incorporate a little bit of that head resonance, that stretch through the A, B flat, B, C. And if you are not, if you're just relying on full chest voice, essentially shouting, you're really gonna start to feel it and hear it on like that B and definitely that C. So there are limits to chest voice, how high we can take it, and that's why we train that transition from chest to head voice and start building a little bit of a balance in between. So we're not just going chest voice, head voice. Dancing Machine's asking, what's a trick to get from chest to head without a break or crack? So your best friend is going to be semi-occluded exercises and trying to keep your volume pretty consistent. The thing that most people do is they get louder as they go higher. So they'll go, and they're getting louder. It's going to be really tough to make a transition when you're already loud and heavy on the top. You're going to break. So instead, I would first start on like an NG, something like that. Could hear a little bit of a break on the way down, but on the way up, it was pretty smooth. I wasn't getting louder. I wasn't going and then breaking. So I'm trying to keep a pretty even tone or even volume throughout. Once you can sing on that NG, then I would try an E. E. An E vowel is really similar to an NG. So think of the NG, the back of your tongue is meeting your soft palate. For an E vowel, just let the back of your tongue drop ever so slightly. Um, the reason that the NG is nice is that sound already is using some nasal resonance. So it's getting some resonance in your head instead of more in your throat or what we call chest resonance sometimes. So already it's that handover is going to be smoother than if you're just going and hoping for the best on your way out or on your way up. So semi-closed exercises, I like the NG, and then try kind of narrow vowels like an E or an ooh, and then gradually start to widen those vowels. So ooh might turn into as in book, and then maybe eventually ah. Um, okay, cool. So finding your highest head voice pitch, give me a high, excited woohoo. That's it. That's all I want you to do. And now I'm going to have you do that on a specific pitch. So if you think you have a lower voice type, give me a woo-hoo on this note right here. Woo-hoo. That's G4. You cannot be approaching this like chest voice. You can't be going woo-hoo. You're not going to get there. So give me light, breathy, quiet, woo-hoo. Excited, bright, woo-hoo. Again, you're making noise, you're not singing. A flat 4. Woo-hoo. A4. Woo-hoo! By the way, I love this exercise for range extension as well. B flat 4, woo-hoo! B4, woo-hoo! C5, woo-hoo! Keep going if you can. So high voices, I expect you to be in now. C sharp 5, D5, E flat 5, E5, F5, F sharp 5, G5, G sharp 5, A5, B flat 5, B5, C6. Above this, we're kind of getting into extension of head voice, maybe whistle territory. C sharp 6, D6, and definitely above that, we're getting into whistle, which not every singer can access, um, in my opinion. Okay, so okay, I find it quite easy to sing around or close to my break when I'm loud, but when I try to be more quiet, it's very difficult to mix without cracking or sounding terrible. Yeah, um, that's fair. I mean, I think that's something to work on though, because there are times when um, we wanna sing in that zone with a different volume than loud. And if all that you can sing is loud there, that would tell me you might be kind of over relying on that chest voice sound. Um, However, it's also normal within that zone that you have to kind of keep a certain intensity to avoid cracking. So that's probably in the realm of normal. Um, okay, so now you've got your comfortable range today, right? You've got your lowest chest voice note, your highest passably chesty pitch. You've got your highest head voice note as well. You can use this either to find the overall range, low chest to high head. When you go to look for warm ups, when you look for songs to sing, singingcarrots.com is one site where you can put in your range and then you can specify, I want a song that goes from this note to this note, and it'll give you some options. Um, I You also might just kind of have to analyze the song as you go, but it's really helpful to know. Let's say you wanna sing I use "Shallow" as an example because I think it's a good one. Um, if you wanna sing "Shallow" and you're listening to that chorus and you're going, "Okay, what note is she singing there?" "I'm off the deep end." And let's say you're newer to singing and that C5 is just head voice for you. Maybe you can only sing with that chest dominant sound up to like an A4. Then okay, that's not exactly within my reach to sing the way Lady Gaga does today. I do have options. I can choose a different key. So I can, type into YouTube shallow karaoke lower key and see what comes up. Or I can sing it in a different way. It doesn't have to sound exactly like hers. I can use more of my head voice sound for those high notes. So it doesn't mean you can't sing that song, but it does give you kind of more realistic expectations of, can I pull this song off today, or is it going to take a little bit more time and work? Um, Okay, I linked at the very beginning of this, I linked a blog post that actually goes through the steps of finding your vocal range, and it also shows you, the overall range is generally for soprano, mezzo, alto, tenor, bari, bass, and just kind of talks about that. So you can check out that blog post. I'll just put it here again. And then Nick was saying, well, I would say Tuner Ninja as well, and then, Singing Carrots. Okay, hopefully I didn't spell that correctly. I didn't spell the word singing correctly. My bad. Okay. Um, so we talked a little bit about the limits of each register. So we talked about how chest voice typically tends to run out for low voices somewhere between E4 and G4, between A4 and C5 for high voices. And then we're going to talk about, okay, how do I extend my range? How to actually sing lower and higher? So for lower pitches, here are my principles, my tips for you. Use a friendly vowel. When I say friendly, I mean what feels comfortable for your voice. I demonstrated for me on those low notes, and E feels pretty comfortable. E, it sounds nice, and is starting to get a little woofy. So I use more closed vowels. So use a friendly vowel, start higher, and then just touch the low note and come back off of it. So what I mean by that is instead of just sitting on a low note that is uncomfortable for you, you can start your pattern up a little bit higher. For example, you could go he and down, he. So you're giving your voice a break. You're stretching into that low note, but then you're coming back off of it. Work towards sustains gradually, right? It's good enough for you to just touch that note. You don't have to hold it for a long time. Um, try the vowel types that work for me are bright vowels like a, e, a, kind of bright sounds like that as opposed to darker sounds. Ooh, oh, and narrow vowels. Oo and e tend to do a little bit better than the more open vowels for me. Another trick that I really like is letting your voice roll down gradually to the next pitch it's ready for. So, for example, I'm going to start on this G. I'm going to use that E vowel and I'll roll down, thinking about relaxing into that low note instead of stretching or pushing for it. E, then I'll reset. E, then I'll reset. E, then reset. E. That feels a lot better than me just forcing my voice down. So I'm kind of letting my voice set the pace. Okay, so for higher pitches, we want to let the vowel adjust. It is not going to work. Let me demonstrate quickly. If I'm trying to extend that kind of chesty mixed sound, let's say I'm up here and I'm going one, 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 one. Notice what happens if I don't let my vowel adjust. If I just keep it pretty closed, one, 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 one. I'm already running out of room. It's already sounding kind of nasal and thin. So instead, I'm going to drop that jaw. I'm going to give a little bit more space inside my mouth. One, 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 one. Better than one, 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 one. Okay? And that's a really common thing that I see singers doing is they're just keeping the same level of opening even when they're going for a higher pitch. Generally, very generally, higher pitches require a little bit more space. You're going to have to tell yourself, "Hey, let that jaw drop." By the way, your jaw hinges down and back. So, what I see some singers doing is when they drop their jaw, they're kind of jetting it forward as well and they're going, "Ah," and it looks very uncomfortable. Let your jaw hinge down and back. Ah, the natural swinging motion of the jaw rather than going, ah, and jetting that jaw forward. Not good. But most likely, you probably need more space for your high notes than you're giving them. That's just kind of across the board. So let your vowel adjust. That could mean letting the vowel narrow or widen at some point. Um, you kind of have to feel it out. Let me do a little example. So if you're working on head voice extension, and we're singing on, let's say, just an ah. It's not gonna sound the best today. Hang with me. So I'm letting my jaw drop just a little bit. I'm starting to feel that just dropping the jaw isn't working, and I'm gonna have to let my mouth widen slightly. So kind of moving from an ah, adding a little bit of ah. That feels a lot better than if I keep that up and down shape. It feels forced. I'm running out of room. It doesn't feel good. So letting the vowel widen ever so slightly, right? I'm not going, ah, no, I'm just adding a little shade of, you could see how subtle that widening was, but it makes a really big difference in how it feels. So as you are singing higher pitches, consider letting your jaw drop a little bit. Think about, is there space between my back teeth? Because just dropping the jaw isn't going to help you. You also need space inside. Ah. Easy way to do that is to kind of gasp as if you're surprised, feel space in the back of your mouth and throat, and sing with that space. Um, Siren up to high notes. So the reason I'm doing that exercise, sliding, ooh, is that's much easier than just jumping straight to the high note. Ooh, ooh, that's tough. So let me go, ooh, ooh. Let me let myself slide into that high note instead of the challenge of hitting it straight on. Um, Approach high notes just as sounds slash experimentation playtime. When we put the pressure of sounding good, it it doesn't really work well. we I want you to focus first on, does this feel good? And then worry about the sound later. And usually if it feels good, it's probably going to sound good as well. So helpful vowels and syllables for extending your range in each register. For low pitches, I like those bright sounds. So for example, the sound ma in the word map. If you're walking down, ma 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 ma. Ma 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 ma, as opposed to oh, where it's getting kind of overly dark. So I like those bright sounds. E, an NG to an E. Mm, e, e, e. Again, you're resisting the tendency to get overly dark and dopey with that larynx that just wants to go really low. For high range extension, my two favorites are an oo vowel and an ah vowel. Again, letting that vowel adjust. So a really narrow ooh, that's not what I'm talking about. Ooh, an ooh vowel that adjusts in space for the pitch I'm singing. And it really is something you have to feel out. I can't really tell you, okay, at this pitch, this is where you need to start dropping the jaw more or letting the vowel widen. But be aware of what it feels like when you're singing. Does it feel like things are starting to constrict? Does it sound like they're starting to constrict? If so, that's a cue that you might need a little bit more space. And then for that mix, that chest dominant mix range, low voices, you're starting that around your E flat four. Higher voices, you're starting that around your A flat four. One of my favorite mix friendly sounds is one. I also really like bu as in book, bu 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 bu. And if you tend to flip into head voice, so if you go ah and flip into a breathy head voice sound, you would probably benefit from bratty sounds. Nay, 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 nay. Sounds like that. Um, Play around, see what works best for you. Um, okay, I'm ready for questions. And if you want to demo some of these exercises, we definitely can. The reason I'm kind of phrasing it more as principles are so that you can um, adjust exercises that you're already using to make them work better for you. So let's say you're doing a warm up that is going lower than you're comfortable. Let's say the singer is on an ah vowel. Now you know, okay, if ah isn't working for me, let me try a really bright syllable like ma, or let me try that narrow e vowel. Or let's say the pitches are going too high for you to comfortably sing. Now you know, okay, let me try adjusting my jaw. Let me try adjusting the vowel. Let me try a different syllable. Again, the number one principle for range extension is using the sound or the syllable that works for your voice. I don't really care if the instructor, even if that instructor is me, says use this sound because this sound works for most people. If it's not working for you, I mean, give it a fair chance, but then try something else. And if something else is like the clear winner and it's easier for you and you're like achieving the desired sound, use that. Use what works. Some encouragement going on in the comments. Very cool. How do ooh, I never did show you how to sing through a straw, did I? So this is answering the question, how do we extend our range quietly since we don't always want to practice loud? 100%, I am with you. So if you grab that straw so many moons ago when I asked you to, get a straw and a cup of water. So this is your intro to straw phonation. The reason that straw phonation is so good is it puts your vocal folds in an ideal position. It gets them lined up efficiently and it's very low impact. The reason it's easy for your vocal folds to come together is because of this beautiful thing called back pressure. So think about it. You have this air coming up from your lungs, your little tiny, teeny vocal folds. Their job is to hold back that air while vibrating, while adjusting in length for pitch. So they have a lot on their plate. When we sing through a straw or a lip trill, but if we sing through a straw, what's happening is I'm now sending some air back to my vocal folds. So it's balancing the air pressure. Now, instead of a ton of air pressure below the vocal folds, now I have some air pressure coming back at them too. So makes it easier for them. We like easy. The easiest way to tell if you are doing this correctly is to get that glass of water, to insert the straw in your mouth just like you were about to drink, but you're blowing out instead, making sound. You want sound and bubbles at the same time. If all I get are bubbles, I'm just blowing air. My vocal folds are not coming together. I'm not phonating or making sound. If all I'm getting is sound, no bubbles, I'm just humming. And humming is good, but it's not giving you the same benefit as straw phonation. Of course, you don't have to continue using the glass of water. You can, once you're confident that you are moving air and making sound at the same time, then you can take the straw out and just use it in the air. Um, so, easy way to practice pretty quietly. And you can just siren to what feels like a comfy low note or a comfy high note and then see if you can extend that a little bit lower. So I'm not even going to play on the piano. I'm just going to let my voice guide how low and high I sing. So I'm going to go for a low note right now. I'm just going to go ooh, something like that. I'm going to go a little bit lower. And I was already singing lower than I comfortably could out in the air. So through the straw, I was able to, it was a little pitchy at first, but I was able to get that D flat. And then when I attempt to sing it, it's almost there. Ooh. at the very least, the notes above that feel much more solid. So since I was able to extend down to the D flat through the straw, now the E flat or the D are a little bit more stable than they were when that was the lowest note I sang today. When it comes to range extension, it's always a good idea to go past what you think your sorry, lowest comfy note is, because then what your lowest note is, say, like, on your resume, it won't feel as low. So for me, if I'm, telling someone what my vocal range is, um, I would go no lower than that E flat 3. Even though I'm able to make sounds sometimes down to that D, maybe a little bit lower, I'm not gonna include it in my actual range, but I do stretch past it so that those E's, F's, and sometimes E flats don't feel like the bottom of my range, if that makes sense. And the same thing for high range extension. Pitch casualty, can you use that for breath control or getting more air to work with? I would say yes for breath control, but not for getting more air. I would say what the straw does is it ensures that you are using air, that you're not holding your air back. But you'll probably find that it requires less air. You can't come up with a lot of breath and then it's going to be really uncomfortable. So, with any SOVT, so semi-occluded vocal exercise or semi-occluded vocal tract exercise, with any SOVT, you're using your air more efficiently. So what you should find is that you have to take in less breath, but you're using it well. You're able to sustain for longer. Juliet is asking, can you help with vibrato? Still can't get it on higher pitches, especially when belting. So, Juliet, I would ask you if you're belting, I would ask you first to try on a slightly more mix friendly vowel. So, kind of our belt friendly vowels are those wide vowels like a, ah, things like that. Um, can you try singing that same pitch on a mix friendly vowel or syllable like ma or wa, something like an or an just to bring in a little bit more lightness. See if that gives your voice the ability to relax and let that vibrato come in, and then let the vowel widen back. Um, I think it's very common for that vibrato to kinda disappear when you're belting, and it's actually desirable on some level to not let your vibrato go when you're belting. Part of that belty sound is restraining the vibrato, so it's just this clear, "Ba," and then that wasn't belting, but, just this clear, sustained sound and then a little vibrato warming up at the end. But I would try that. Try, altering the vowel slightly so that it's a little bit more of a mixy sound than a belty sound, um, and see if that helps you. Cookie, my biggest problem when it comes to singing is singing in front of people. Like, I'm that shy and quiet person. I easily get scared that people will judge me and my voice. So how can I overcome my stage fright? I would say a step at a time, little baby steps. The more experiences that you have that you can recall where you shared your voice with somebody and it went okay, the more confident you're gonna be moving forward. So that could start very small. That could start with, recording yourself. So it's a recording that you're proud of. You're not even having to sing live, and then sending that to a friend or a family member and asking for some positive feedback. And you could also just ask them, I don't want negative feedback or constructive criticism. I just want you to tell me the good things because I already know the bad things. I'm my own worst critic, and I'm really hard on myself. So what I need is encouragement. If you can start with that, and then maybe if that person is a safe person to sing in front of, then maybe you do sing for them live. Um, but I would start small and build up those experiences of singing in front of people or sharing your voice with people and and it going okay. Um, nerves are nerves are a big deal. They really are. There are a few other things. So something I'm into lately are looking up ways that we can stimulate our vagus nerve to get our parasympathetic nervous system activated instead of our sympathetic nervous system. So your sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, freeze, that stress response. Your parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. A few ways that you can tell your body, hey, we're in rest and digest mode, are to do some deep breathing, to run your fingers across your lips. I know that feels or sounds weird. To do the Valsalva maneuver, which is what you do when you're trying to pop your ears. You know, you plug your nose and then breathe out. I felt my ears pop just then. um, giving yourself a massage, doing some controlled breathing where you're breathing in and then exhaling for longer than you breathed in. But look that up. Look up parasympathetic nervous system for, or vagus nerve stimulus for stage fright, and see what else you can find. Another kind of odd sounding one, but kind of cool is you give yourself a little bit of an ear massage. So you actually place your fingers inside your ear and massage a little bit in small circles, and you're pressing kind of back, um and see, it's really interesting. The first time I did this, you can do one side at a time and then see if you start to salivate or yawn, because again, we're trying to tell our body it's time to rest and digest. The salivation is, digestion, and yawning would be resting. So you might find one or two of those responses. So doing that, even as you're practicing with the intention, tequila, um, when you're practicing with the intention of singing live, in front of others, kind of getting yourself into that headspace, but also using those tools to help your body relax. Um, and I would say another thing that you can do is mental rehearsal. So think about, be as specific as you can with what the situation is going to be. So, say you've already shared a recording with a friend, and then you say, hey, can I sing a little verse of a song I'm working on for you live? And they say yes. Then think about, okay, where am I going to be? What are the surroundings? What does my friend look like? Are they going to be looking at me? Um, and incorporate that into your rehearsal, because a lot of times, here's what's tricky. When we're practicing at home, we're not nervous. We're just maybe some of us are, but for the most part, we're definitely not as nervous as when we get in front of other people. So dealing with nerves is not a part of our practice routine. And then when we get in front of other people, now we have all these nerves to deal with. So a good way to prepare yourself for that is to kind of welcome those feelings, welcome those stage fright feelings and anxiety, and practice with that feeling. Knowing that, when you're in the safety of your practice room or your home, it's probably going to go okay, but at least you have given your body and your brain the chance to practice with nerves. And that's really what you need, is experience singing despite those nerves. I have been singing for many years. I remember my first audition, I was 7 years old, and the nerves I felt were, unreal. I just didn't expect it. I didn't know that I would feel like that. And I get nervous for auditions still. I get nervous for some performances. Um, so it is something that you get used to singing in spite of. Um, Nick is asking, do you recommend hissing sounds as part of a warm up routine? And thank you. I hope it recovers quickly too. Yeah, I do like hissing. I think the potential pitfall with hissing is that we're holding a lot of tension in order to control that exhale. So what I would say, if you're doing hissing exercises, don't take in as much air as you possibly can. Don't and then I don't wanna sing with all that tension. So just take a normal sized breath so that it doesn't feel, you don't have that feeling. That's not a good feeling. So, yeah, normal sized breath, hissing, and you can go back and forth. An exercise I really like to do is going back and forth between a hiss and a hum so that I can feel on the hiss, it's really easy to feel my intercostals, the muscles between my ribs, working. And then I'm going to the hum to keep that same engagement. Um, and Juliet is asking, last question, is vocal fry actually bad for the voice? So anything overdone, vocal fry, breathiness, belting, anything that we're overdoing has the potential to be bad, but vocal fry in and of itself, in moderation, is not bad. It's actually, can be relaxing for the voice. So to be safe, I would say if you're working on your vocal fry or singing with a lot of vocal fry, I would ensure that after that, you do some exercises that get you singing with clean tone again, just so that it doesn't become a habit that you're constantly falling into fry. So maybe you do some sirens, woo, nice clean tone. Maybe you return to that SOVT exercise. That's, just to be on the safe side. All right, my friends, I am going to let you go. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you for being here, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.